Imagine a world where you are considered unique not for your talents or abilities, but for what you are unable to do. Imagine a world where everyone could swim while you are slowly and silently drowning, unable to call for help because of people who think you should be able to swim. This is a world we live in, where those who are disabled are judged and made to feel lesser than in comparison to those who have healthy, able bodies and minds. Many of our civilians in the world are forced to live a life where many don't understand the struggles they face, whether it be on a medical, physical, or neurological level. The life of a disabled person is nearly 100 times harder than that of an able-bodied person. According to the World Health Organization, an estimated 1.3 billion people, about 60% of the global population, currently experience a significant disability. Despite this high percentage of people who face the strife caused by a disability, we do little to support them in their day-to-day lives. As someone who knows many people with disabilities and have disabilities myself, it wasn't until I heard their stories and strives that I began to realize how little I knew about the life of those with disabilities and how it bleeds into their every waking and sleeping moments, making it nearly impossible to find the normal many people live without a singular thought. Disabilities come in many different forms. A disability can affect many parts of a human, like their vision, movement, hearing, mental capacity, or ability to communicate with others. As defined by the CDC, also known as the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, one qualifies for a disability when it impairs a person's body, physical or mental function, or limits, restricts, or prevents daily activities. As someone who lived able-bodied for a majority of my current life, it wasn't until my health took a turn that I began to realize how one's disability could turn even the simplest activities into a challenge. Imagine you are healthy, able to do a simple task you desire without a single care in the world. This was the life I led prior to my health taking a turn. At the time, I was 120 pounds and healthy. I was a track runner with a mile time of 6 minutes and 32 seconds. I was the picture-perfect definition of a healthy person without a care in the world. At 16, I graduated with stars in my eyes and excitement with what was to come. Sadly, what was to come wasn't as others had vocalized to me prior. What was to come was doctor's visit after doctor's visit, begging for someone to care. At age 16, my vision began to cloud and darken when I stood. A few months later, I had a medical event that resulted in me being driven to the emergency room with a heart rate of 200, my arms and legs numb. Afraid and in pain, I had expected for the doctors to take care of me to care and investigate, but that night I returned home with a heart rate of 160 and ibuprofen. Shortly after I went to my primary care doctor, I was met with the same attitude. Visit after visit, I was met with disappointment and no answers for my mysterious illness. I began to question whether I would genuinely hit the ground the next time I stood or walked too quickly, and thus began to live life like I had a life bomb strapped to my chest. With no answers, I continued to beg for someone to notice and investigate my problems instead of taking the easy path and citing my medical event as an anxiety attack. I begged and begged as my condition worsened for spotty vision, and my heart acting as if my standing was me racing on the track to vertigo and vomiting when my heart rate went too high. At age 17, I gave up, resigning myself to a life where I constantly hurt and lived life carefully, but even my careful was not enough. One day I stood to assist one of my siblings with a simple task of getting a snack from a higher shelf and twisted my ankle. I heard the familiar snap I had once heard when I fractured my bone, but felt no pain despite knowing this injury had once resulted in me in tears. I felt nothing for an hour, unable to move my foot or wiggle my toes. My foot slowly began to have healing, and all at once that pain hit. Despite hearing that this event, no doctor rushed to find what ailed me. At age 18, with no answers to my mysterious illness, I visited the doctor again and again, begging for someone to listen, only to be told to live my life as if my youth had gone. But it hadn't. I was still young and told by those passing that these were the years of my life, so why was it that rather than thriving, I was barely getting by? I fought and yelled and begged. It wasn't until I was 19 that tests were being done due to one doctor voicing that my ailments were unnatural for someone for my age. Thus, I received my answers. I was diagnosed with EDS, POTS, and dysautonomia and small fiber neuropathy. To this day, I currently struggle with daily painful body spasms, tremors, aching joints, migraines, limb numbness, a high heart rate, and doctors that cite that I'm a unicorn to them. On the daily, I am constantly told by older family members that my ailment should not define me, nor be an excuse. I am constantly fighting to explain that my conditions that constitute for me to get a service animal are not excuses made to be dramatic, that this is a large part of my life that I constantly surrender a part of my daily schedule to managing, and that my ailments are considered moderate to my doctors that I'm being treated by. I still have my driver's license, despite others with my condition being prevented from driving due to the possibility that they might faint and crash, harming themselves and those around them. It wasn't until I had my disability and thus began to connect with those via the internet on the troubles that one experiences with a disability and conditions that prevent you from living normally that I began to take notice to things in the world that are not made with those with the disabilities in mind. Imagine a world where you have to ask for aid with your disability or wanting to prevent medical events from happening. Imagine that at every turn you make, you notice another thing made with only able-bodied people in mind. This is the life many disabled people live. Many have to request and petition for ramps to be made for those who are wheelchair-bound. Deaf people have to request for special closed captioning devices to get the experience, the act of watching a movie when it comes into theaters. This is the same world where those with hearing disabilities have to adjust to those who are ignorant on how to communicate with deaf people. This is the same world where many learn other verbal languages at a young age, from Spanish to French, but languages like American Sign Language or any sign language is rarely seen in school. This is the same world where training your dog to warn you and possibly save you in a medical emergency costs you anywhere from $10,000 to $30,000. This is our world, where mobility aids, cognitive aids, sensory aids, and motor aids that give many the semblance of normality could cost hundreds of thousands of dollars out of their pocket. This is our world, where many are made to be ignorant to those who struggle with disabilities. We do not show a semblance of care unless we see these disabilities in people we hold close to our hearts. It is only then that many who are not disabled begin to see the world of the able-bodied as a fair. This is a world I and many others see and begin to question as to why. Why is it that we know that those with seizures are triggered by flashing lights, but medical emergency services drive with their lights flashing to indicate that someone is in need of assistance? Why haven't we created another way to indicate to deaf people that medical emergency services are coming without needlessly triggering a medical event? Why is ASL not a common knowledge, and why is it that hearing people don't learn it in their youth as a way to communicate in times where words cannot be used? Why is it that we have the American Disability Act to prevent people and corporations from discriminating to those who are disabled? There are many conditions that are worse than what I have, leading to those with disabilities missing out on experiences that others have, and being forced to experience events that others will never experience. Some face discrimination due to their disabilities, due to the lack of information given on the disabilities and their natures. Many believe that disabilities are purely those that you could see, like a missing limb, hearing aids, or walking cane and glassy, cloudy eyes. Why is it that many who do not imagine someone physically disabled then imagine someone older? Why is it that many disabled people are forced to speak out against those who discriminate against them because they do not look disabled enough? There are many stories out on the internet where people have to prove that their service dog is truly a service dog trained to handle their medical events or disabilities. There are many more horror stories where people scream and yell claiming that a disabled person is not disabled enough to use equipment created for them. And finally, why is it that rather than making more changes for those with disabilities, we prevent them from feeling normal while being comfortable? An example of this is the Disneyland and World DAS Pass, which was once a pass for all those who qualified for disabilities to check into the ride via mobile device or paper slip given to the guests with disabilities upon entering the park. This slip would allow you to check into a ride and come back after your wait was finally finished, thus allowing you to wait while taking care of yourself, whether that be by resting or eating. As of May, this pass was changed to only cater to those with developmental disabilities, thus excluding other disabled people from using the pass. Evidently, many disabled people were furious and took to social media to air their disdain. Meanwhile, many able-bodied TikTokers and other influential people began to discuss this pass as one would explain the Fast Pass, as a way to cut the line, but without paying the Fast Pass fee. This was clearly not the case, but it did not stop the misinformation from spreading. As Ziggy Oskwaker, a Disney enthusiast, explains in his updated piece, Disney's A Disability Pass Guide, DAS, and How to Qualify, this change was likely due to the fact that those without disabilities were abusing the system after the Fast Pass was updated and made to be more expensive. As a result, Disney felt the need to make the requirements for a DAS harder to fake, thus excluding people with disabilities and medical conditions that prevent them from waiting in lines for long periods of time. As someone with 2 type 1 diabetics in their family, this DAS change made it impossible for us to come back to Disneyland, as most of the rides require you to leave your baggage, and we require their medication and low treatments to prevent seizures. From what I have heard, the American Disability Act is not in favor of these new changes and is actively fighting Disney's DAS pass, as it is considered a discriminatory act to put additional restrictions on disability passes once created to give those with disabilities the ability to feel normal and comfortable. We live in a world where more than 16% of us live with a disability, whether it be physical, neurological, or mental. But the world we live in is only made for the majority, thus leading to a cycle of ignorance that can lead to 3 paths. One where we are ignorant and loud, unable to sympathize or empathize with those who are forced to live with disability. Another where we are ignorant and thinking nothing more of those who live with disability. Or one where we realize and make change to better the lives of everyone around us and on Earth. So, my question is to you. Now knowing what you do about disabilities, will you continue to be ignorant to the struggle those with disabilities have to face daily in a world made without a thought to them? Or will you be that change to make lives better for everyone on Earth?